If you are fed up with going it alone on your health journey and you are struggling, you're generally not feeling your best self but are ready to get optimized, why not book a free wellness discovery call with me, a naturopathic nutritionist and functional health coach, where I'll help you understand the root causes of your issues and guide you in the right direction of which of my programs would be best suited for you, whether that be a group program or one-to-one coaching. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Optimized Health Show. It's been a busy time in our lives.
As always, I guess.
Always. I've been for facial and I've got the itchiest face in the world. The lesson learned there, I never treat myself to facials. Felt lovely at the time. Now my face is itchy. I went for an aqua facial. It's supposed to be very good, but I think
no idea what you're talking about.
Well, they use a lactic acid product which pulls all the crap out of your pores with water, and then they put another thing on, and then they're hyaluronic acid. And I've never really had any reactions to skin stuff before, apart from high-strength vitamin C serums, which makes me sad because it's so good for collagen production, but I can't use it. Literally feels like my face is going to fall off. And I said that to her, and she was like, no, I don't think there's any in it. I was like, brilliant. All fine having it done. Got home, and I was like, oh no, the itch. My jawline is very itchy right now.
I had my sweat tested yesterday.
Oh, yes. Tell us more about the sweat test, because I still don't get it. Just tests how much
not really complicated.
Stuff is in your sweat.
Just tests how salty your sweat is.
And yours was salty.
It's pretty salty, yeah. Like
what does that mean?
1,003 milligrams per litre.
What does that mean? That you're a salty person?
I mean, I don't think that it's far off the average, because apparently the average is like 940 something. So it's a bit saltier.
You're salty.
Yeah, it's quite interesting just to see, because then it determines how much electrolytes you should consume to replenish your sodium levels when you sweat. But you really need to know the rate of sweating as well, so like how much you're sweating.
And why were you doing that? You were at Roundhay Park because
triathlon this weekend. Tomorrow.
One of our friends is doing it, and it sounds brutal.
Yeah, not for me.
Not for me. How long is it going to take? About 12 hours?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the top boys are doing like 9 or less than 9. But yeah.
Still a lot of, that's a lot.
It's a lot of exercising, isn't it?
That's a lot of exercising. Swimming in a lake.
A long swim in a lake. A very long bike for 7 hours or something.
Oh.
And then a marathon at the end, just to top it off.
A full marathon?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything worse. I mean, that is...
Yeah, I'm not an endurance guy, personally. It's not for me.
I mean, Kev is.
Kev is Mr. Endurance.
He is Mr. Endurance Bunny.
Loves the cardio. I mean, I like cardio, but
not to that extent.
Short period.
I mean, fair play. Go, Kev. We're cheering you on. I mean, that would have segued wonderful into a podcast about electrolytes and hydration. Yeah,
but we're not talking about that today. No, what are we talking about?
We're talking about IBS today. The wonderful world of IBS.
Irritable bowel syndrome.
Exactly, that everyone gets labelled with.
That blanket term that means not a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I have IBS.
So what is IBS? Tell me now.
Well, it is a group of symptoms linked to the gut, obviously. And there's two main types, IBS-C and IBS-D. So IBS-C is constipation and IBS-D is more diarrhoea. And you can have both. Yeah, did you not know that?
Constipation and diarrhoea.
Yeah.
You've named that.
Yeah.
Wonderfully.
I know, but the reality is IBS is irritable bowel syndrome. And when anything is a syndrome, it basically just means it's a group of symptoms coming together, and there's an underlying reason for those symptoms that just doesn't really get looked into. So this is what we want to talk about today, because the amount of people that I speak to are like, oh, I've got IBS. I've had it since I was 15 years old. And I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I've got IBS. And what have you done about it? Well, nothing. I just take Buscopan if I need to, or a laxative if I need to go to the loo. And I'm like, well, that's not ideal, because there's underlying reasons why you have an irritable bowel. You're not just born with an irritable bowel. So you have to think, like, what is actually driving this? And yes, some people are like, oh, it's stress driven. And I'm like, yeah, stress can massively impact the gut and how it works, because you've got a big nerve that runs from the gut to the brain called the vagus nerve. And, stress can stimulate that in ways that can cause issues. But also what we need to consider is that stress actually impacts the diversity of the gut microbiome. So when we look at IBS, 99% of the time it's because you've got imbalances in your gut microbiome. A lot of the time people actually have a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Back to that gut.
Yeah, so a lot of people who have IBS actually have a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So in our intestines, we have the small and the large intestine. And the small intestine is where we absorb most of our nutrients. But we shouldn't have loads of bacteria in the small intestine. We have kind of like a flap that stops the bacteria going from the large intestine to the small intestine. Most of the bacteria are housed in the large intestine. But if you've got a faulty flap, then those bacteria can migrate up.
That's a one-way flap, should be.
Well, yeah, they should be going, staying down, not going up. But yeah, when you have this bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine, that causes a lot of inflammation, maldigestion, malabsorption, and a lot of systemic issues, because that's not where those bacteria are supposed to live. And so really, if you have been labeled with IBS, what I would say to you is that is a sign to do some deeper levels of investigation into your gut health. You could go to the doctors and you may get tested for the main things like H. pylori, or they may do a colonoscopy or something to look for inflammation, but they're not going to look at the full array of bacteria in your gut and the different types and whether they're in balance or not, because we have so many different bacteria. We've got commensal bacteria, which are the ones we live in harmony with. They're, great when they're in balance. So that's good. We need those commensals to do their job, but too many of those, you run into issues. And again, we often see that when people have got a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It's not an overgrowth of bad bacteria, the pathogenic ones. It's an overgrowth of the bacteria that they should have. So we have to question, why is that happening? What's allowing those bacteria to run riot in your gut and overproduce or over replicate? Because they're your own bacteria that you've had forever. So why are they now suddenly replicating themselves? Some people say that a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is actually more autoimmune in likeness, because why would your bacteria overgrow like that? The immune system should be keeping things in check, and it's often not. So there could be some immune system dysregulation going on that's allowing those bacteria to overgrow. Stress obviously can be another one, because that will mess with everything in the gut. Stress, all comes down to stress. Something really to think about, though, when you do have some kind of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is the fact that we have something called migrating motor complex, MMC, in our small intestine. So that migrating motor complex is like a brush, like a little swoopy brush. And what it does is it brushes those bacteria back down from the small intestine through the little flap back into the large intestine where they belong. But that brushing motion takes about 2 hours, sometimes a little bit longer. And what is one thing that many people do is they snack and they graze all day. And basically, if you're not allowing that brushing motion to fully happen because you're grazing all day, then you're not going to get that swooping motion, and those bacteria are not going to go back down to where they belong in the large intestine. So being a snacky can lead to a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Something to consider there. So some common patterns we might see, bacterial patterns we might see in IBS, are overgrowths of some of our certain bacteria, like I can never say this word, Methanobrevibacter smithii. That's the one that's more linked to like methane production. And that's seen a lot in a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and that can drive constipation. And again, the more constipated you become, the more you're not getting things out, the more overgrown you're going to become of certain bacteria as well, and backlog of toxins. And then a lot of kind of gram-negative bacteria are often high in people with a IBS type picture. So we have gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. So gram-positive, they can be beneficial. So things like Lactobacillus bifidobacterium, things like that, they can produce short-chain fatty acids. So they really support the gut lining. Short-chain fatty acids are so important for our gut lining. They keep it intact, nice and happy and healthy. They reduce inflammation. And the gut lining is where the immune system is housed. So that's super important, because as soon as we have a gut lining that is diminished, isn't really functioning particularly well, is inflamed, we're not going to be absorbing nutrients, but also we are going to have an immune system that gets upregulated and starts causing chaos and inflammation throughout the body. And then our gram-negative bacteria. So these bacteria have an outer membrane that contains lipopolysaccharides. So lipopolysaccharides are like these endotoxins that can trigger the immune system, make it upregulated, and then they can actually deposit throughout the body and cause mass inflammation throughout the body. So I always say to people, what happens in the gut doesn't stay in the gut. Just because you don't have dramatic gut issues like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, you could still have gut issues, because if you've got this overgrowth of gram-negative bacteria that are creating these lipopolysaccharides that are then escaping through the gut lining and depositing around your body, that can cause inflammation in other places like your uterus. It's actually been shown in a lot of studies now that endometriosis is massively linked to the gut, and that lipopolysaccharides have been found in the uterine lining of people with endometriosis. So it can drive so many symptoms in all parts of the body: skin issues, acne, autoimmunity. There are certain bacteria in the gut that can be autoimmune triggering. So we have to consider all of this when you have any digestive issues, or if you have any autoimmune conditions. Whenever someone has an autoimmune condition, I'm like, well, we have to go to the gut. We have to go and work on your gut, because the reality is you're going to have gut issues. And I can say that from experience, because I have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition. It's in remission. And that's because I've done a lot of the deep work on the gut, on removing toxins, on balancing the immune system back out. So this is what you have to consider with IBS. Like, what are the underlying factors that are driving this? Going to the toilet twice a week is not normal. I actually had a discovery call with someone the other day, and I always ask people about bowel movements. And I was like, talking about going to the toilet, and she was like, well, I go to the toilet probably 3 times a week, which is normal for me. That's good for me. And I was like, well, no, it's not. It's
blows my mind when people say that.
Yeah, it's not normal. It might be normal for you, but that's not normal. And that needs rectifying, because every time you're not opening your bowels and getting stuff out, you're having a recirculation of toxins, of estrogen that needs to get out of the body, because that's one of the routes out. When we use hormones, they have to be broken down and eliminated. So estrogen is massively determined by your gut bacteria. So if you've got a certain overgrowth in your gut, you are going to recirculate estrogen back into the body. There's an enzyme that gets released called beta-glucuronidase, and that unravels estrogen from the kind of binding that's gone on in the gut and lets it recirculate back into the body. So then we end up with hormonal imbalances and all this other stuff going on that's linked to hormones, but it's not actually the hormones that are the issue. It's the gut that's driving the hormones to be out of balance. So if you have a lot of gram-negative bacteria that have risen these LPS levels throughout the body, that can lead to low-grade inflammation throughout the body, change your motility, and make you feel like crap, basically. And then if you've got not enough of the goodies, then you're going to be in trouble, because you're going to have less butyrate. Butyrate protects the gut lining. You're going to have more risk of leaky gut, more risk of overactivity in the immune system, and all of this shiz going on. So you need to look into your gut deeper. You need to look at the different bacteria that are going on in your gut and see which ones are out of balance, because like I mentioned, you might have some bacterial pathogens. So if we think of different categories, the bacterial pathogens, think of them like the baddies. They're the ones we do not want in the gut. They shouldn't be in there. So as soon as you have some of those, they need to be got rid of, basically, if they're in excess. So things like E. coli, salmonella, things that C. diff, which is deadly. People can die from that. So there are kind of more bacterial pathogens, parasitic type stuff going on. So a lot of people have parasites, they don't even know it, and that can drive so many symptoms. And then you've got things like H. pylori, which we've both had, haven't we? A lot of people actually have H. pylori.
Doesn't everyone have it?
Everyone does have some H. pylori, yeah. It's about the level that you've got and everything kind of coming together. So we have something called virulence factors. If you have raised virulence factors, then that's more of a cause for concern, because they're the things that will drive things like stomach cancers and stomach ulcers. So if someone does a GI test with me and they've got H. pylori that's raised and they've got virulence factors, I'm like, yeah, we absolutely need to treat this. If someone has just got slightly high H. pylori, it really depends on the rest of what's going on as to whether we treat it or whether it will come back into a state of regulation when everything else is back into balance. So we have to look at the bigger picture of all of it. We then have our keystone commensal bacteria. So these are the really important guys that we need. So we've got the ones that help regulate blood sugar, like Akkermansia, super important. I mean, you are a big fan of good old Joel Green, like me.
Yeah,
We've read
he
his
talks about
books.
it all the time.
He talks about Akkermansia all the time, as well as Bifidobacterium, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because they are really the key ones that protect the gut lining, reduce inflammation, help with insulin signaling, all of that stuff, the really important stuff. So we need that to be there. We need a good amount of those. But sometimes we might see those start to creep up. So you can see high Akkermansia on a GI test. And when you start to see Akkermansia high on a GI test, it's often because it's trying to compensate for other things that might be low or out of balance. So yeah, Akkermansia is important. And then we've got our what we'd call opportunistic bacteria. So the opportunistic ones are the ones that we kind of live in harmony with when they're in balance. So they support us, we support them, we, have a good relationship. But if they start to overgrow and get out of balance, that's when they cause issues. So they are ones that can cause a lot of issues in the body. They can trigger inflammation, they can trigger autoimmunity, not fun. So it's all about like checking and being like, well, what's out of balance? And the key is, why is it out of balance? So there's certain ones that I see out of balance, say, for example, the staph and the strep type ones, normally when there's a compromised digestion, so low digestive capacity, low stomach acid, low digestive enzymes. What's driving the low stomach acid? Stress. We always have to go back and go, but why has that happened? Because otherwise you end up going round in circles. You fix the gut, but if you don't fix the reasons why the gut was out of balance in the first place, you'll just go back to square one. So yes, absolutely, it's about addressing what's overgrown, and that's not going to happen by just putting in a probiotic. We've said this in podcasts before, but drives me bonkers. People just go, oh, I'm just taking a probiotic, and I'm like, that's not fixing what's going on.
Yeah, we mentioned this before, didn't we? Mm-hmm. So many different types of probiotics.
So many different types of probiotics.
Worse.
Yeah, and there's certain, I love probiotics. They're hugely beneficial, and different strains can be better for different things. But you also need to consider when there's imbalances, if you just don't know what you're doing with a probiotic and you randomly shove something in, you're adding fuel to a fire. You start adding certain strains in that fuel a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth when it's already overgrown. It's not really what you want to be doing. So you need to know what you're doing with probiotics. Don't just go and randomly buy something without knowing more about why and the reasons to take it. And
coconut cult.
Oh yeah, I mean it tasted amazing, but my digestive tract was like frickin' hell.
Great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, how many billion did it have? That was
4 billion, 5 billion.
No, it's more than that.
Was it 50 billion?
Yeah, it was about 50 billion CFU. It was really high. Tasted amazing, but both of us were like farty as hell, which sometimes can happen when you start a probiotic. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, it doesn't always mean that that's a bad thing, because sometimes it's just shifting things around in the right way. So it should be that sometimes you might have a reaction to begin with, but after a few days it settles down and all is good. But if you have something and you're crippled over and it doesn't change, that's probably a sign that it's not the one that you want to be taking. So yeah, different strains of probiotics, and maybe this is, I say this on every podcast, this is probably a podcast for another podcast. Another topic for another podcast is different strains of probiotics and what they can be beneficial for. I'm a big fan of a spore-based probiotic, mainly because it's not going to overfeed any one type of bacteria.
Yeah.
It's quite a broad...
super stable.
Yeah, very stable.
They don't have to be kept cool.
Do you want to actually touch on that in the world of probiotics? Because obviously you have a probiotic. I use certain strains with Arbonne as well that are spore-based. Do you want to talk a little bit more about like the problem with a lot of probiotics on the market in terms of quality?
And in terms of quality?
Yeah.
Well,
quality, and also are they actually...
A lot of them have to be kept cool, right? Because they're live organisms that can die. But that's where spore-based differs, because they don't rely on being kept cool, and they bypass the acidic environment of the large intestine, is it?
Yeah,
they make their way to the small intestine, which is how they're so beneficial.
Or is it the other way around? They go through the small intestine to the large.
Which one's first?
Can't remember, but the large intestine is where most of the bacteria should be.
I guess.
The Optimized Health Show is brought to you by Love Life Supplements. If you're looking for clean, effective, high-quality supplements that are thoroughly tested and GMP certified, head over to lovelifesupplements.co.uk and use the code BEN10 for 10% off your entire order.
But again, it's that situation of just shoving in a spore-based probiotic when you've got massive overgrowth isn't going to fix it. You need to get to the root and actually remove the bacteria.
Comes from testing first, like we say again.
It does.
Testing your poo.
Yeah, test your poo. It's really fun to do. Collect your poo in a tray, send it to a lab. I would hate that job of being the analyzer. I mean, that's not fun. But then they basically send you a report back showing you which bacteria are overgrown, which you don't have enough of, which are out of balance, whether you've got parasites, whether you've got those opportunistic ones overgrowing, more autoimmune triggering ones, methanoBacteria, that one, which is more of a SIBO type picture. So they show all of the different types of bacteria. And again, this is what, if anyone ever books a discovery call with me and they're like, yeah, I've got severe digestive issues, I'm told I've got IBS, I'm like, the first thing we're doing is a GI map, because I can guarantee there's stuff going on in there, that you've got overgrowth. And again, from symptom questionnaires, etc., with clients, I can work out what's going on and know what's going on most of the time. But it's so important to look deeper into this, because you can't just constantly supplement your way out of a poor gut situation. So on a GI map as well, it will also show you digestive health markers. So things like steatocrit. Are you digesting fats properly? If steatocrit is high, it shows that you are not digesting fats well. And that's super important, because when you're not digesting fats, that can cause diarrhea. But also you're not going to absorb fat-soluble nutrients like vitamins A, D, E, and K if you're not digesting fats properly. If you've got no gallbladder, that can be a part of the picture there, because you need the bile flow to be able to digest fats properly. So you should have a big dump of bile into the gut when you eat. The gallbladder squirts and contracts a bit like a squirty gun and dumps a load of bile into the digestive tract. And when you don't have a gallbladder, you don't have any squirty gun to squeeze to dump the bile into the gut. So you just have like a constant drip.
Or gallstones can block it, right?
Yeah, gallstones you can have sludgy bile, so you're not getting the bile flow, and that can lead to malabsorption and then loads of issues, because that bile is also an emulsifier, breaks fats and things down, but it's also an antimicrobial. So it keeps the gut bacteria in check and makes sure that the baddies don't overgrow. So if you're missing that whole bit, you're kind of buggered. And, you know, there's such a... it's such a big topic, the gallbladder, and it's actually the most performed surgery is gallbladder removal. So
typical doctor.
Well, yeah,
cut it out.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, cut it out. And I get it. Like, you know, if it's too far gone and you've got massive stones, then that's a situation. But we have to look at what got you to that place in the first place. Unfortunately, for females, it is more common because high estrogen will cause sludgier bile. It is one of the ways that we metabolize and break down estrogen is through bile. So the bile, basically, estrogen goes to the liver breaks it down. Bile is created in the liver and stored in the gallbladder. Bile will then dump estrogen into the gut packages it up, and then we poop it out. So if you're not pooping every day, it's going back in. If you've not got that nice bile flow, you're not getting that estrogen detoxification as well as other toxins, because they're all detoxed the same way, toxins and estrogen, same process, and you're not absorbing what you need to absorb. We can also see things like how well your pancreas is producing digestive enzymes. So if you've got low elastase, you're not producing enough digestive enzymes. And of course, if you're not producing enough digestive enzymes, that will lead to bloating, because you're not breaking down your food properly, and it will just sit in your gut and ferment and feels horrible. Beta-glucuronidase, so that's the enzyme that gets released from a type of, or a group of bacteria called the estrobolome. And that's the one that's responsible for helping get estrogen out of the body and toxins. So when beta-glucuronidase is raised, then we can see that, you know, you need some support around that whilst we're fixing the gut. It normally is raised when there's bacterial imbalances, but that means estrogen is going to be out of balance. Obviously, we don't want to see blood in stools. And then we can even see the immune system within the gut. So secretory IgA is a sign of the immune system in the gut lining. So about 70 to 80% of the immune system, is in the gut lining. So this is the challenge that we have, is the immune system doesn't always show up in bloods. You know, You're not going to get a blood test and be like, oh, my immune system is buggered. It's like, well, no, a lot of it is living in your tissues, like your gut lining. But we can see that in a GI test. And so we want to see if your immune system is downregulated or upregulated. If it's upregulated, it's fighting something. So again, what bacteria is it trying to get rid of? Now, what I often see and what is actually more concerning is when we've got overgrowths of bacteria and the immune system in the gut, the secretory IgA is really low. And that's a sign that that's chronic. That's, been going on a long time, because the immune system is now like, I'm knackered. There's nothing left. I've got no fight left to give. So it starts to be not enough immune response in the gut. But what we often see in that case is that there is a big immune response elsewhere in the body. So you've got low kind of defenses within your gut, which means you're more prone to bacterial pathogens, more prone to all kind of things going on, and you've not got enough resilience against them. So we really want to make sure that secretory IgA is in a good place and healthy. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see in the kind of nutrition world is when people are run through gut protocols and there's not enough of a focus on rebuilding the gut mucosal lining afterwards, because that's where the secretory IgA is. That's where the immune system is housed. So we need to make sure that we are replenishing that gut lining and that mucosal lining and supporting it, so that we can get the immune system to be happy and working as it should in that gut lining. So we need to use things for sometimes a really extended period of time to bring that immune system back online and to make sure that, nothing is going to get through and stimulate it. We can see things like inflammation. We can see food intolerances in the gut, if your immune system is overreacting to certain foods. And we can see things like zonulin, which show us about, again, leaky gut and how you're digesting things, etc. So there's so much that can be seen in a GI map that you just won't get in mainstream medicine. You'll get tested for the main things, like I said, like maybe E. coli or salmonella or what else? Maybe H. pylori if you're lucky, and any kind of inflammation stuff, but you're not going to get a thorough overview of all the different bacteria and if they're in balance, and if you've got the butyrate producing ones and the ones that help you balance your blood sugar, and all of that stuff is just not going to be seen. IBS, have you ever had IBS? Or have you ever been...
Well, we just said it doesn't exist.
We've both been through gut protocols.
Yeah. I had that triple therapy, didn't I?
You did
have... destroyed my...
Yeah, but
gut.
Looking back, I'm like, was it necessary? I don't think...
Because antibiotics can wreck your microbiome, right?
Yeah.
And so many people are on antibiotics. Like, that's the first thing a doctor will prescribe.
Yeah.
And then, so it will just crush you.
Well, it gets rid of all the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And it's not
that's probably a huge thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it? That people are not correcting their microbiome after going through antibiotics.
Yeah.
You could go through several courses of antibiotics and then not do anything afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're not told. We're not told about any of that. And I want you to just think, like, how many rounds of antibiotics have you had in your life? I went through a phase where I was on antibiotics loads because I kept getting tonsillitis.
It's like kids as well, obviously.
And for kids, it's even worse. Yeah. Like, that's when their microbiome is really forming and should be flourishing, and that is just getting destroyed by rounds of antibiotics. And it's not to say there's not a time and a place. Sometimes they're
overprescribed.
Yeah. Sometimes they're vital, they're necessary, but they're often used as a precautionary measure. And it's like, well, maybe we should have done some deeper investigation first before we just put in a precautionary measure that's now going to cause other issues. So yeah, if you've been on antibiotics, definitely need to address what's going on. If you've noticed that your digestion has really suffered after being on antibiotics, definitely need to do some further investigation. I'd really recommend, when you're on an antibiotic, if you have to take one, that you take a spore-based probiotic alongside it. To kind of counteract some of the damage. There used to be kind of this premise that taking it alongside wasn't a good idea because it would just get wiped out, but actually that's shown to be wrong. You should take it alongside. There's a couple of key ones that I recommend whilst people are on an antibiotic. So do some deeper level of investigation.
Only a mainstream doctor would say it's IBS, right? You would never say IBS.
No, I would never say IBS. I'd be like, what is driving this? Yeah. So deeper level of investigation. If it's been a long-standing thing, I'd highly recommend doing a GI test, looking at your gut bacteria to see what's truly going on, what's out of balance. And in all honesty, everyone should really do a GI test at some point in their life.
Roger.
Because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's going on until you test things and look at them.
It should probably be an annual thing, like a blood test.
Yeah. There is one key thing I would say about this as well, though. We have something called biofilms within the gut. So biofilms are like a disgusting, sludgy mucus layer growth, a bit like snail slime. And bacteria use these to hide behind. So they create them so that they can hide and be undetected, essentially, hide behind this slime.
So weird.
I know, it's gross. So what we have to do in gut protocols is, and this is the thing, don't DIY your health. You can't go and do a GI test and be like, oh, I've got an overgrowth, great, I'm going to go and take a load of killers. And I see people do this all the time when they haven't even got a GI test.
Dr. ChatGPT now.
Yeah, ChatGPT knows everything. But I've had conversations with people who are like, oh, I'm taking this for my gut, and they're taking oregano oil, and they're taking, grapefruit seed extract, and all these things all the time. And I'm like, you're basically just doing what an antibiotic, because they are antimicrobials, and yes, they're incredible. They have some amazing benefits to help rid bacteria. But you don't want to be on them all the time. Like, number one, your body will become resistant to them. And number two, that's like having an antibiotic in your daily regime. Like, you just wouldn't do it. So don't guess with your own health. Like, if you think you've got gut issues, have a test done and work with a professional who can help you formulate a proper plan to know what you need to do. So basically, we do what I would call a 5R gut protocol. I can never remember all the 5 Rs are there in the order. But that's if you've got overgrowth, what you need to do to get rid of the bacteria. Sometimes, though, it can be that you don't have enough good bacteria. Because when you haven't got enough of the goodies, that's causing a lot of the same symptoms. So you need to know whether you've got not enough, too many. And like I mentioned, with these biofilms, they are hiding these bacteria behind them. So you have to have a period of doing biofilm removal, putting certain agents in that help basically strip those biofilms away so you can actually get to the bacteria. So what I've actually started doing with clients recently who want to do GI tests is getting them to actually use a biofilm remover supplement firstly before they do the test, because I can guarantee for a lot of people, they're not seeing what is actually in there because it's being hidden by these biofilms. And it's like, well, if we started to remove some of those biofilms, would we see a lot more in a GI test that's actually hidden and that's driving a lot of your symptoms? So that's a key thing. Other things that feed biofilms are magnesium, iron, zinc, fermented foods. So again, when we self-prescribe supplements, are we actually fueling something? I see a lot of the time women with low iron, and then they just go onto an iron supplement, and I'm like, what's driving that low iron? Yes, if you've got heavy periods, I understand that could be a part of the picture, but iron is a really interesting one because too much of it is not a good thing, and it can cause your body to rust. So you don't want to be just willy-nilly supplementing things like that. But again, you could be feeding something that you don't really want to be feeding. Are you feeding those biofilms? Because if you've got let's say you've done some labs and your iron comes up as low, you have to question, why is it low? Is there some reason why it's low? Is it heavy bleeding? Okay. Is it malabsorption? Is it that I've got parasites or I've got these biofilms and my body is trying to lock that iron away to stop feeding them, or it's being stolen by them? Because that happens a lot. Parasites feed on iron. Biofilms feed on iron. So rather than just going, oh, I'm going to take an iron supplement to fix the problem, you're not fixing the problem. You've got to go back down to, why is this happening? What is driving this? So biofilm removal. Then we go into antimicrobials. So it can be things like oregano oil, neem, depends what's going on. Each person is individual, berberine, there's lots of different ones. We'll do a period of that. And again, it depends on how extensive it is as to how much we need to do. And I rotate people on and off them. Whilst we're doing that, we need to make sure the gut lining is nice and happy, because if there's anything going on with that gut lining, then you're going to stimulate an immune response that can lead to histamine reactions, which we spoke about in a previous podcast. So listen to that one, all about histamine. So fixing the gut lining, making sure that it's not gappy and leaky so that things can't escape through. Once we've done all of that, that's when we have to go in and then put the good back in, put the good bacteria back in. So something like a spore-based probiotic. So you've got is it Bacillus coagulans?
Bacillus coagulans and Bacillus subtilis,
Yeah.
which have been shown to be a good combination. I can't remember the studies now. But yeah.
Yeah, those two.
Super strong, 5 billion of each.
And it's also, has it got some prebiotic in there
Yeah,
as well?
prebiotic, inulin, digestive enzymes as well.
So it's a good all-rounder. So using things like that to start then repopulating and feeding the good bacteria again, but keeping that mucosal lining support going. So I love to use like immunoglobulins. Immunoglobulins are brilliant at kind of keeping the immune system happy and diverting the immune system away from kind of bacteria and things. They can help with the gut lining. So I use a lot of things like that. Colostrum can be super helpful as well. So yeah, things like that to really get that secretory IgA back in a really good place and keep that mucosal lining nice and strong. And then thinking, how do I stay in this place where I don't go back to square one? What led you there in the first place? Was it the foods that you were eating? Was it the lifestyle you were leading? Was it the chronic dieting? Was it the overtraining? Was it the stress? They're all things that can make the gut messy. And so we want to go back and always address that. Otherwise, we just go round and round in circles. Anything you'd like to add about IBS?
No.
Your whole family seem to have IBS.
So do yours.
No, but yours truly do. And they do. Your sister's got IBS.
Well, like we said, it's not a thing. So
this is what we're saying is, they have not done any GI tests to look at what is going on.
My brother's bad though, isn't he, as well?
Yeah, both of them. But
again, they're quite mainstream, gone down the mainstream route, and they won't listen to us.
No.
But yours as well, though, right? Your brother.
Well, I think.
And your cousins.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Probably everyone knows a family member who's been diagnosed with IBS.
Yeah.
And they just live with it and they just take crappy medication.
Yeah. And again, it's really thinking what's driving it, because if you've got low stomach acid, you are going to be prone to bacterial overgrowth. But what drives low stomach acid? Low thyroid function. But what drives low thyroid function? So it's always like you have to keep questioning and going, but why, but why, but why? Because otherwise you're never really getting to the real reasons. And sometimes it's a combination of reasons.
Complex.
It is very complex.
Basically, like everything is complex.
The body is a wonderful thing.
Nothing that works in isolation.
No.
They're all connected.
This is it. We've got 11 systems of the body. They all talk to each other. You can't just focus on one. And again, this is what we try and do, is compartmentalize the body into one system at a time. And you'll see a gastroenterologist about your gut, a hematologist about your blood, and endocrinologist about your hormones. It's like, but that's not how the body works. They all talk to each other. So shouldn't we be doing that, looking at all of them and which is interacting with what and where to start with all of it? It's not as simple as taking a probiotic. It's not as simple as just removing a food or taking some Buscopan. It's a lot more than that. And we would encourage you to do some deeper level of investigation if you have gut issues, because it's not, what happens in the gut doesn't stay in the gut. It affects every single system in your body.
It's like you think you could have that's where like food intolerances come into it, don't you? You think, oh, I can't eat cheese or I can't eat dairy, but you might be able to, like, if you fix what's happening in the gut, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That could be just something going wrong in your gut. Some overgrowth of some bacteria that you've just had for years and years and years and never been corrected. But you just say, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that.
Yeah. Or if you've got leaky gut, if you've got a list as long as your arm of things that you react to, it's probably because you've got a leaky gut. You shouldn't have 50 food intolerances. You shouldn't have loads of food intolerances. And then
people take those crappy food intolerance tests.
Yeah, that are a glorified food log. They're not telling you anything other than the food you've just eaten, a lot of, because that's your immune system should react to food.
And then for the rest of their life, they won't eat these certain foods.
Yeah. So if you've got lists of foods and things that you can't eat because they make you feel like crap, it's a sign that there needs to be some deeper work done. You've probably got a leaky gut that needs fixing, and you've probably got some overgrowth and potentially a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I think that's everything we wanted to share this week. We will do another podcast on different probiotics and which ones can be used for what scenarios.
Yep.
But that is us over and out for another.
Cool.
We'll be back.
We'll be back at some point in the future.
Thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to share.
Leave a 5-star review only.
And yeah, share with anyone that has IBS and needs to hear this information.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.